I appreciate you coming on today, especially in light of what's out there about you and your travel as secretary. 24-plus flights on chartered aircraft, total tab to the taxpayer, $300,000. Important to know there's no accusations this was anything for other than official government duties. But at the same time, the Inspector General is looking into this, and I'm wondering if you're still convinced now, in light of what's been brought up and what you've read, if the decision to use private aircraft was still the best stewardship of the taxpayers' dollars.
Yeah, all of these, as you mentioned, were work-related and official business. And of the 11 trips over the last 8 months, the majority of them were for either the opioid crisis or the hurricanes. But we've heard the criticism, we've heard the concerns, and we take that very seriously and have taken it to heart. As you mentioned, the Inspector General is going through a review and an audit of this process, and we will cooperate fully with it. I've instituted or initiated as well an internal departmental review of the procedures and processes that we go through for official travel to determine whether there are any changes or reforms that are necessary. And if there are, then we look forward to instituting those because we welcome this review. We want to make certain that we have the full confidence of not just this administration, but the American people.
I appreciate you saying that. It's worth sometimes looking back to sort of how people have viewed things in the past. This is you back in 2010 speaking about House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
I say to the Speaker, don't you fly over our country in your luxury jet and lecture us on what it means to be an American. Don't you tell us about America.
Put yourself back in your shoes as Congressman Price, who was, without question, a sort of dogged fighter for the taxpayer dollars. If Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius had done this same thing, would you have some tough questions for her about it, even if it was, as you point out, for the opioid crisis or to get out to San Diego?
No, and I think the issue with the speaker, the former speaker, was a different matter. But be that as it may, listen, we've heard this criticism, and we're very, very serious about addressing it. And that's why, as the Inspector General goes through his review and his audit, with which we'll cooperate, our internal review, we want to make certain that the processes and procedures that are in place have the full confidence of the American people, so that the trust is not just restored, but is ensured.
Okay, processes and procedures, I understand that. There's a lot of criticism about the trip up to Philadelphia when Amtrak and driving often works to go up there. Understand there's a long review. At this point, though, would you say it's fair for you to commit not to use private jets until that's reviewed, or are you still going forward in the way you have in the past and then wait for their review?
No, we've taken many trips in car, sometimes 4 and 5 hours at a time. So this isn't the routine. These were 11 trips over about an 8-month period of time. But again, this review is incredibly important, and we want to make certain that the processes that we have in place have the full confidence of, again, not just the administration, but the American people, so that we can carry out our mission, which is to ensure that we improve the health, safety, and well-being of the American people.
I understand processes and procedures, but there's also the optics, and there's also a congressman who was so dogged about the public's money, and you took Speaker Pelosi, a number of members of the House took Speaker Pelosi to task for using a 757 to fly around the country and using private jets as well. How is this any different? I'm wondering if you were thinking, as you were taking these charter flights, if you thought to yourself, gee, the optics of this wouldn't be great, especially as HHS is cutting your budget, cutting programs, cutting staff.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And the optics in some of this don't look good, and that's why we, again, have taken this criticism to heart. But the whole process that we undertook, each of these trips were reviewed. They had a legal review and a legal approval process that was undertaken that we're gonna look at, and we want to make certain that we're fulfilling the responsibility from a budgetary standpoint as well. We want to make certain that that our first customer is the American taxpayer. In terms of how these were paid, they were paid for out of the Secretary's budget, and that budget has been level with this president, with this administration. So again, we look forward to the review. Want to make certain that we have the full confidence of the American people.
Even before a review, sir, though, you're the secretary. The buck stops with you. Even before a review, anything that you're putting in place immediately, and you're saying, as Secretary, as the man responsible for the budget, these are my new standards. Even before we hear from the Inspector General, this is the way I want my department viewing taxpayer money going forward.
Yeah, I don't think there would be any charter trips until this review is complete. I think that's appropriate because of the concerns that we've heard. I suspect there might be an emergency that would occur, but I doubt that there would be any charter trips prior to the review being completed. And I think that will be completed expeditiously, both on our part and on the part of the Inspector General. Well,